Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is John Viglotti. On behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for our Precious Metals and Critical Materials Conference. Our next live presentation is from Silver Tiger Metals. Please note you can submit questions for the presenter in a box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome back Glenn Jesum. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Silver Tiger Metals, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol SLVTF and on the TSXV under the symbol SLVR. Welcome back, Glenn.
John, thank you very much. It's great to be back with the audience and really appreciate speaking. I know mainly we're based in Canada, but really do appreciate speaking with my American shareholders and potential shareholders. So look, let's jump right in here. I'm going to talk about three things today. I'm going to talk about what we all should be thinking about. A silver market for the ages. And we've been in Mexico for almost 30 years, our group out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, here in Canada, East Coast, building big silver mines. So we've seen it all. And boy, what we see on the horizon is very, very exciting, we think, for the silver market. Look, this morning, gold back to $2,700 almost, silver back up over $3,200. $32,200. That's exact. That'd be a lot. $32 going in the right direction. We think just getting going. We think it's going to test all-time highs. We'll see. But let me just talk a little bit. And I talk about this a bit. Let's talk about the market. Secondly, we're going to update you on the Tiger and all the great things and accomplishments we've probably made, how we've driven the business to build ready. Now going to be, we think, one of the world's next great silver mines. We'll talk a bit about that. And then at the end, we're going to talk about, the market, Mexico, new president, how positive it's become. United States have a new president-elect, how that may affect things, and Canada's relationship with Mexico, all point to very, very positive things for mining companies operating in Mexico, mining silver. So look, let's go back and start about the market. Look, simple. Let's talk about, go micro then macro. Micro on Mexico, a little screen here. Mexico makes 24% of the world's silver. If you're going to invest in silver, if you're going to mine silver, why we've been there almost 30 years, probably a good place to be. Number two, I want you to look at the bottom in that little chart in the bottom right-hand corner. This is as simple as it gets for us. The world is about supply and demand. If you got not enough of what people want and they really want it, they're going to pay more to get it, the same product. Supply and demand. We've all studied that, heard about it. It's the same with silver. And if you can see on this chart, up until about 2020, we were okay because we've been doing, for the 20, 25 years before that, we were part of our mines in Mexico, world total production. Let's just round it to say it was about 800 million silver ounces. Okay, that's great. And we were, as you can see, for the 4 or 5 years before in the chart, even going, if we'd gone back to 2010, that was a good number. The world, we were making 800, the world needed 800. And then things changed drastically. You probably heard about the new world that wants to get rid of oil, and it'll be a little slower transition than most people think, but in time that will happen, and we want solar, and we want batteries, we want electric cars, and we want more electronics, we want them to be smaller, all of that. And you can see the deficit. Those are the black lines at the right-hand side of that chart. And that deficit is growing. Since 2015-16 alone, just one of those things I talked about, solar power. We've all seen the solar panels going up all over the United States, Canada, Mexico especially. It went from 50 million silver equivalent ounces of demand to this year, 232 million. Look at that deficit. We have no way of making more silver. So think about where the silver price is going to go. Just on that simple example. But I will say one other thing though. Also, and I've mentioned this before when I spoke to this conference. In 2026, there'll be 51 silver mines in the world. By 2027, that's going to go to 44. And by 2028, that number goes to 38. Because we're always putting ourselves out of business as miners. There's so much of it. When you discover a mine, you put it on the books and you go get it, you sell, you make a lot of money. So Silver Tiger is poised to become 39 on that list. So we're excited about that. It's a great time. And we think that, we mined silver at $12, $14, $16, $18 and made very, very good returns. 32, exceptional. We'll show you that in some of the economics we're going to talk about in the plan that's recently been out for our first stage of our mine, the open pit. It looks like it's going to keep on rolling. One thing I will say is, and I'm not hanging our hat on that we're condoning these projections, but if you're interested, there's a gentleman named Florian Grummies. He's an expert. He speaks on a lot of. I just got back from Dubai. He was a lead speaker there at a one-to-one conference. He was a speaker before that, I think, at a big conference in London, and then he was at the biggest show in Beaver Creek. I think he was one of the lead speakers. He's a predictor, and he likes to say on the basis of charts and all kinds of technical analysis where he thinks the gold and silver price will go. Got a large following. I think that means he's been right more than wrong, but still not a fine science. But Florian, we work with Florian on a lot of things. We like to kind of know maybe where the price is going, and if you're ever interested in seeing some of his charting or seeing some of his thoughts on what he thinks is going to happen, especially with the silver price, go to X. And you can go to @SilverTigerMetals and you'll be able to find some of his charts. Of course, we're not saying that is absolutely going to happen. It's more of a guess than science, but he's very technical. I think you might enjoy that. And we like following along with him. He's predicting much higher silver prices in the future. That being said, let's talk about LT grade. I think most people have heard a lot of this. So I'm not going to get down in the weeds and do, a deep dive, but let's just give you a little bit of rundown. Remember, we're in Mexico. We've been there a long time. We happen to be in the state of Sonora with this project, LT grade. And what I really like about that state is that's a mining state. About 25% of the GDP of that state is straight up mining, very pro-business and pro-mining state government there. We're about 100 kilometers from the U.S. border. Our concession package, which is the next thing you'll see on the screen when it changes, is that, for simplification, yellow box. That's a big yellow box. That's 35 kilometers in length, and we have 25 kilometers of that prolific Sierra Madre trend that we hear so much about, especially some of those old American movies that were made back in the day about the guys going down there to find the gold and silver. That being said, beautiful land package, 30,000 hectares. And we've been busy. I want to show you though that we're just getting going at LT grade. We've already put, just for an example, we've already put 200 million silver equivalent ounces on the books since we've had this project in 2017. And when we put our PFS out, our independent geologists, that's an independent report, have said, do a little more drilling around the area where you found all of that, and you'll put another, in our opinion, 73 to 100 million silver equivalent ounces. We start getting up around 300 million silver equivalent ounces. Multiply that by $32. That's a lot of silver. So that being said, I want to explain a little bit about where all our work's been done. Is only right around here, right in the middle of the project. Okay, 3 or 4 kilometers. We still have, and I'll show you on a better slide here in a second, 10 to 15 kilometers on each side of that that we've, and I think I'll get that slide up right now. This will really show it more clearly. It'll be a blow up of it. We really have just gotten going. We're putting that 300, this is rough diagramming here, 300 million either potential or on the book silver ounces, and 10 or 15 kilometers on each side. We've mapped it, sampled it, looks the same. We'll get to it in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And that's how long, if you get a big project like this, it lasts. So potential mine we're going to build here. Oh boy, you talk about blue sky outside of that mine. We've got a lot of that. A good friend of mine in the business, I've watched him present. He always says the trend, and the trend is the 25 kilometers that you have. He always says the trend is my friend. The trend is our friend also at El Tigre. So we're very excited to have not only this ready to go, but much, much more to add as the decades go by. All right, let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to get real simple here, and I'm going to say the following. If I took a slice right through there, I'm going to talk geology here, so I'm going to make it easy, because those geologists, they can talk. I'm a securities lawyer by training. I think I've mentioned that before. So I'm going to bring it down to my level so everybody can understand the geology. I took a slice right through the earth, down about 500 meters, and we looked at what the end of that looked like. That's what this is. And this is an important slide because it really can tell the whole business model about what we're going to do for the next 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years at El Tigre, 20 years. And that's that slice. That's about 500 meters of depth right there. Okay, 500. And we're underground. So it's really simple what we've done. There are always two parts to most mines in Mexico. It's called an epithermal system, this being a flowering epithermal system, which most of them are, which means you got a big stockwork zone, open pit at surface. And then why that's there is because there's a very narrow silver vein that came to surface. And as it did, it had a blowout of mineralization. Remember, these are back in times when, if you guys remember, you look at Old Faithful and how that's bubbling and erupting all the time. Well, that's exactly what this was. Basically, then what you do here is you had a dissemination of gold and silver. In this pit, 75% gold, roughly, 25% silver. Big 100, 150 meter wide benches of ore. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's your open pit. That's ready to go. We just put the PFS out on that. We're going to talk about those economics in a little bit, okay? Now, that being said, then you go on, once you get that, you dig it up, you put it on a heap leach, you get the gold and the silver, then you go underground, you build a big underground mine. That's just always the way the business plan has been here. It won't change. We got lucky, and we did, because we only have ever seen these two types of mineralization. Open pit, narrow vein, silver. Underground, it's 75% silver in the veins. It's a silver mine, 25% gold. There's always gold in these. There's never just one metal, okay? So that's what we were going to do. This, go underground. As we were drilling from surface, we discovered a beautiful big shale zone. We followed it for 3-4 kilometers now. It's 20, 30 meters thick. It's epigenetic to the veins. That's a fancy geological word. Means that this mineralization came out of these veins. That means out of that high-grade silver vein, there was another blowout of mineralization, not as wide, 20, 30 meters around the vein, and you're getting ore that's up of a kilo of silver. You remember our high-grade drill results. People love those. We're going to talk about that at the end. We're getting back to those. I had to do the last 50,000 meters of drilling to finish the pit and the PFS. We're back underground drilling again. Let's leave that for the end because that's exciting, and I'll show you how we're doing that. We found this big shale zone. What beautiful ore. Bulk tonnage. As you're taking the narrow vein, you get some big, big bulk tonnage ore. And then the last thing we discovered just more than a year ago was this big sulfide zone. We put the first drill holes down 400 meters. First hole back was like 40 meters of a kilo of silver. What is that? That's about 400 meters down. And boy, we can't wait to get more drill holes. We got 30, 40 drill holes in it. It's all ready, and it's epigenetic to the vein. That means when that vein went through, whatever that great rock or plumbing was there, it just absorbed a lot of gold and silver, but wide zones. That's already 750 meters, 350 meters high, 20, 30 meters wide, and it's averaging 600, 700 grams. A lot more work to be done, but you're going to see we just put the first drill holes through that this week from underground. We'll talk about that at the end. Very exciting. Business plan. Let's so you know the whole picture before I transition and talk a little bit about our beautiful PFS that came out. And we might have talked about that, so I won't spend too much time, but I'll show you the economics on it. Here's a simple thing. PFS is done, pre-feasibility study. We will build this pit on that. I'll show what that's going to look like. Let's just say, I'm making this up, we get all the paperwork we need in place by March of 2025. And we could do that very easily. But I'm just drawing this line because I want to show an example. I'm not guaranteeing we're going to have it ready to go then. But let's say we start this in March 2025, building. It's going to take 14 to 18 months to build it. So say summer 2026, this is built. Open pit. Beautiful. It starts free cash flowing about 50 million USD after tax per year. That's a lot of money for a low investment. We'll talk about that in a minute. Well, what are we going to do with that? We're not going to sit in our hands. So between now and the summer of 2026, I got to get the underground. Remember, we got 100 million silver equivalent ounces here already. I think we got 113 in the underground, just getting going, million silver equivalent ounces. So we got to catch up by 2026 and have this all ready to go. That means you watch me. We did a PEA. We drilled this and did an MRE, a mineral resource estimate. Then we did a preliminary economic assessment, then a PFS ready to build. Well, we got to do the same thing. So drill more, do the work, and by first half of 2025, H1 2025, we will release the PEA for this underground mine. It's going to be beautiful, 800 tons per day. Stay tuned for that. And that's not enough to build it on. We think if we self-fund with that money from the pit, we'll be able to do it on a PFS. By early 2026, I'll have the pre-feasibility study all ready for the underground. Then 2026, when you've got this ready, another year to build that, and call it fall 2027, underground's in production. This is in my perfect business plan world. Pit was in production later in second half of 2026. You'll be making about 5 million silver equivalent ounces a year from the underground, from the open pit, 4 to 5 from the underground. Call yourself a 9 to 10 million ounce producer. I'm not going to say we're going to be these peers of ours, but I'm going to mention them. Because on that production profile, and as profitable as we think we're going to be from the PFS we have for the pit and what we think the PEA will look like, then the companies that are our peers in the space, Aya in production, Silvercrest in production, Gatos in production. These are Mexico. And you could say Orla. They make a little more product than us, but beautiful open pit mine in Mexico. All in production. Market cap, over 2 billion. Silvercrest just sold for 1.7 billion to Core in September. On a beautiful mine that makes about this much silver with a 5-year mine life left. 6, something like that. That's in their plan. Don't quote me. Gatos just sold half of themselves for $1 billion roughly to First Majestic. Orla, I think last I looked, they were $2.4 billion market cap. The point is, this is how we greatly increase from a development company worth $100 million to an asset that could approach our peers, and they are our peers, same, of $2 billion. That's a real good return. And that's what we are now in the verge of as we've got this thing ready to build. So it's very exciting. We're excited. The team's excited. Can't wait to get going. Let's look at the PFS just quickly. I got to talk about the underground, and I got to leave some time for questions. It goes by quickly. So that being said, let's go look at the highlights. Now, these are the economics. Remember, this is just the pit. It's such a beautiful, beautiful money-making endeavor for a low capex. That's what a pit in Mexico is all about. That being said, this study was done at $2,150 gold. We're almost $2,700. $26 silver, because we like to use lower numbers, conservative. What is it today? 32. So I'm going to tell you what at spot prices today these numbers look like as I go through them quickly. There's what it is at the lower conservative numbers. 220 million, 2 million NPV. It's 350 at spot today. 40% IRR, incredible IRR at the lower prices. These down here, it's 60% IRR at spot prices. Your payback, which means all your capital you put in, you pay it back in 2 years at these prices. At today's spot prices, it's 1.5 years. Incredible. This is nice. This is a 10-year mine life. This will probably have 15 years, this pit, but we just optimized it at 10 for now. It makes $318 million after tax USD free cash flow. That's at the lower prices. At spot, it makes $520 million over 10 years. You can do the math. So profitable. And here's the magic. That's for an $86 million CapEx US. You go look at some CapExes on mines, underground mines, big, that would have not even as good a numbers as this. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of CapEx. You got to get that money and pay it back before you start making it. That's the magic of this pit. It's so economic, and that's what a 12% contingency in it. Look at our costs: 12 on silver and 14. Right now, the all-in sustaining cost average in 2023 went up 57%, almost $17 across the board on mines, and are going up 9.7% a year afterwards. So we're already a low quartile producer. Exciting. And 5 million ounces out of the gate. That's enough on that. Let's talk about what's going to happen next. You saw the business plan. I laid it out what the next couple of years look like, and we're going to do all we can to execute in that. Let's go back to my cartoon to finish up, and then we'll take some questions. Talk quickly about Mexico. Take some questions in the last 5 minutes or so. I want to talk about this. Remember, this is exciting. We haven't drilled the underground for more than a year because we had to do 50,000 meters or so to finish the open pit. So what we decided was I was drilling all those deep holes down in the sulfide and the veins, 600, 700 meter holes. Well, that's all over because what we did, and I think we've talked about this before, is we're miners. Let's get back in that old mine. Let's start drilling all those holes, 100, 200, 250 meter holes from surface, from underground, I mean. So what we did, and I think you'll probably remember is the old Tiger mine is open back up. We're in and out of there with a 5.5 by 5.5 meter commercial opening. You see the kind of equipment we're in. We're hauling out waste rock, Wasaga, and beautiful underground. You can see it. It looks a lot like this, and very exciting. 5.5 by 5. We're about a half kilometer in. I showed you on the cartoon. Someday, that's going to be the same underground haulage way that brings all the ore to that underground mine when we get this in production. And my example I used was 2027. But right now, we're going in. And we're going in with all of our drill gear so that we can basically do underground drilling. And that's what we started to do. And very exciting, as you can see, there's right half kilometer in the mountain. Our drill rig started turning last week. First hole is already finished. I'll show you where that came from. But really nice to have the team back underground, drilling from underground, cutting the length of those meters in half. So very, very, very exciting. So what we're going to do basically is I'll show you a little bit. Here's what we're going to do. This is really simple. We're now underground here. Instead of drilling from up here, we drill short little 150 meter holes, 100 meter, 20, 30, 50 meter holes, and we're starting to hit everything. You've got the sulfide zone, you've got the black shales, you've got all three of the major veins. And remember, from underground, you can drill up too. So great optionality. Back to the cartoon to finish. If I can find my little cartoon. So as you see, we're sitting right here now. Drill rig's going. And we've just finished the first hole through the sulfide down through the vein, and we've gone through the shale and down through the sulfide zone. Second hole started. January, after Christmas, we're going to start to see those high-grade Tiger results. It's exciting. I know people like to see them. I'm really doing all this to help with the PEA we'll put out the first half of next year. But if you remember, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 meters of 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. We've drilled up to 86 kilos in some of these veins. Incredible results. It's going to be exciting to have those coming again. So stay tuned for those in January. We'll get them to you as soon as we can. Get some samples off to the lab from this underground drilling, and off we go. Look, I think it's important to look at what we've done, and we'll lead into it with this slide, okay? Look, I'm not going to say the AMLO administration in Mexico, which was 6 years. That's about the 6 years we owned this project. We've drilled hundreds of thousands of meters during that period. We've raised over $100 million from bought deal financings led by the biggest banks in Toronto, New York, etc. And the people that gave us the vast majority of that are these funds, our big shareholders. And they said, our return, we're going to give you that 100 million, all bought deal, straight up common shares, go to work and build the mine. That's how they get their alpha return. So during AMLO, we didn't slow down. We wanted to get on the other side of that so that we'd be ready to build under a new administration, which we thought would be a little bit better with respect to permits, to mining, foreign investment. So we did that. What he did do, AMLO, during is he caused this, because sentiment in Mexico is at all-time lows. It was during his administration, still is actually, but that's about to change. We raised our money at lower valuations than we would have. And that's all. Didn't slow us down, made us raise our money at a little lower valuation. But we raised over $100 million during his administration and got to here, ready to build, as I've explained to you. Now, that being said, Mexico, new government. I've talked about this. You can go on my website, Silver Tiger Metals, under investors, CEO, interviews. Maybe there's not hundreds, but there's a lot. And I just did one. You'll see them right. I was interviewed in London. I was interviewed in Dubai in the last 3 or 4 weeks at shows I was there. Beaver Creek, the Denver Gold Show. All the way back. Go back a year or so. I always said open pit mining would never go away in Mexico. It didn't. I always started to see that this new government, led by Claudia Sheinbaum, very smart person, would be much more open to foreign investment and would be much more mining friendly. She has been. A fact. So we're going to short circuit. We don't have a ton of time to get into the details. If you want a deeper dive in that, all through the fall, I did a lot of interviews. Go look at them on the website, 45 minutes, breaking down exactly all the rationale, logic, why we thought that it would be better, why we thought that open pit would never go away, why we thought that permits would start to be issued very soon. You can look at that. I am sitting here telling you that right now we are very close, in my opinion, to having the big re-rating coming from Mexican stocks, because we're still beaten down across the board. Developers, those making the silver, like I talked about, because the price is so high, they're just trading on the tons of money they're making. But those that are development company, even exploration, beat down way further. The re-rating will be the first permits being issued. I think, and I've said for a long time, and I really think now, I always said originally through the fall, I thought you'd see permits maybe not until next year. And I thought they would be slower coming out. I think that's been because of the government's actions, because of what we see, because of what's being said, because of what we're hearing when we meet with government officials. We think that permits are imminent. What's that mean? It doesn't matter if I am the first permit that gets issued. I think I'll be very, very high on the list of permits that are issued. We're already permitted for the underground. I remind you, fully for the underground. All we need is an amendment. And we hope to that. I hope to have that early in 2025. But the re-rating is going to be when any permit is issued. There hasn't been a permit issued in Mexico for mine since 2016. AMLO issued none. Now they're getting very close. Go look at the press. Go read some of the statements she's made in her last speeches. Very, very close. That's what we think. And that will be the re-rating. That's what everything is going to go up. I think that there could be 3 phases of the permits. And I think it's important to understand that. The first will be, there'll be amendment permits. There are a lot of companies there that need a pushback for their pit or expansion underground. We think those will come. I think it's just more logical. You'll see. It could be wrong, because we think that there could be underground permits. It doesn't matter first and then open pit. They could come together. We don't know, but the re-rating that's going to happen when that dam bursts, we're going to see great value, creation for all of our companies and for any of our shareholders that are here and shareholders at this time. So keep an eye over the next days, weeks, into the new year early, what's going to happen, because we think there's great news coming in Mexico. On that note, look, I'm going to look at some questions here. I think I'm going to stop sharing, if that's okay, if I can figure out how to do that, and go full screen, and then I think that we can basically answer a few of these questions. Glenn, the trend is your friend. You say, what does the trend of the sulfide zone look like? Very good question. Look, that sulfide zone is sitting on it's epigenetic to the veins. We see it on all 3 of the main veins, the Sui, Tiger, and the and the site's Kelly. It's when I said it's already 750, we just stopped drilling there. We think it's going to keep expanding. It seems to be sitting right on what we call the basement rock, the Precambrian granite, and that Precambrian granite kind of, as you go along the 20, 25 kilometers, we're dreaming in Technicolor here a little bit, of the trend I talked about, that outcrops. And we see that outcropping over the 20 or 20, because the side of the mountain gets eroded even down that deep. We expect it to keep going. Stay tuned. You'll see those drill results as we step out. What's the next one? Do you have any further indications of an approval for open pit? Well, I mean, you can go and I'm very comfortable we're going to get our open pit mining basically approved. If you remember, AMLO was going to cancel all. That never happened. I was strictly said and very strongly said I didn't think that would happen. She removed open pits from her platform back in October to make changes to that. And as you can see, and just go check the press. I don't have a lot of time to get into it, but she's made a speech in the last week or so. It's all over the press where she's basically come out and said there's going to be a complete review of the government policy with respect to the banning of open pit minings because it's absolutely needed for economic purposes for Mexico. And you can go find some of that yourself. And that's within the last several days. And that's all over the press. Something very, very interesting. What are the key takeaways from the recent PFS filings for you? Listen, I can spend $89 million CapEx, and I can make over the decade $520 million USD after-tax free cash flow at today's prices with a 60% IRR, and I pay all the capital back in a year and a half. Yeah, that's got me pretty excited. We just need to execute that and get that to happen. Let me see if I can find some more questions here. The Mexican president said that's Friday daily briefing that she had directed the government to take a look at open pit mining and report back to her. No, I don't. I did not read that article. There are many articles about that. When they talk about looking at open pit mining, she means there's going to have to be permits for the mining to work there. I really can't comment if there'll be any delays. We don't expect any. That's all I can tell you. There's a person asking what order of magnitude you see in the re-rating. I'm not even going to guess at that. But I will tell you that, and you can go back and look at the trading history in October for our company and many of the companies across the board that are in Mexico. On the simple little Claudia Sheinbaum removing, and she had 100 points she was going to govern on. And 87 talked about, tightening concessions for mining, potential banning of open pit mining. That was number 87 throughout her campaign. And when she was elected and she put her official 100 points that she was going to govern on the Mexican website, this is all facts, it was reported on greatly around 2nd, 3rd, 4th of October, I think, just after she came into power, 87 was removed. And just that getting out onto, to the street, we called it, or those that invest in silver, our stock doubled. And we've settled back a little bit because we've doubled so fast. But on that tiny bit of news, we doubled. That's a fact. I'm not saying we're going to double again, but we expect there will be a good re-rating. And if you look across the board at most of the Mexican miners, not the producers, but the developers or explorers, they also had that same type of move. So yeah, the re-rating could be extremely powerful just on a little tiny bit of news like that. Not a permit, not that we're open for business. Here we go. We expect some strong re-rating. I'm not going to guess at the number. There's a fact you can go look at and you can make your own presumptions. I think that's all the questions I can see, guys. So with that, I think we're over time and we'll end this. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. We'll be back to see you next year. Hopefully by that time, we're talking about construction and moving the pit forward. Time will tell, but we're very, very, very positive about the direction of foreign investment and foreign mining investment in Mexico. So I think the next couple of months will be very exciting. Thank you again. You can buy our stock on the OTCQX SLVTF and here in Canada on the TSX Venture Exchange SLVR. We'd love to have you as shareholders. And if there's any other information you need, you can reach out to us and we'll